What's up, YouTube? Looks like we're 1 minute fashionably late. That still is polite society. We're less than 5 minutes late and not more than 10 minutes early. That's the target operating protocol for Alan's stream. Welcome, BB. Welcome, Viata. Today we have a fun topic, which is writing computers, codes, and trust. These topics come together in some very... Well, I think it's a good topic to tie in a lot of ancient stuff with our modern world with digital computers. So... let's take a look. BB says, found you from Xaw's Discord, but I subscribed because you're a fellow Sacramento-er. Yes. Hi from Sac City, our California capital. Not all Californians. Hashtag. There's great diversity among the residents of California. I think sometimes people look at our friends in Silicon Valley and tend to say, oh, you're from California, and have negative stereotypes about us. So, oh, what are you going to do next? Move to Florida or Texas and ruin my state too with your bad voting? But I'm saying hashtag not all Californians. So welcome, fellow California Sacramento dweller. All right, so let's get started. Today we got a couple words of the day. From Latin, this word cōdex, meaning tree trunk, book, or notebook. Here is a Wikipedia note on this word, plural codices, cōdex, depending how you pronounce it. Codex, plural codices in English, was the historical ancestor of the modern book. Instead of being composed of sheets of paper, it used sheets of vellum, papyrus, and other materials. The term codex is often used for ancient manuscript books with handwritten contents. So in modern times, I think that like a hardcover book is thought of as kind of a long-lasting, safe bet for stuff. But if we start to look at historical records and things, we could see that all sorts of documents have come in other forms. Actually, there was like these giant books that I think were in Prague. Codex Gigas. So let's install this word cōdex in our minds by looking at a dramatic example. So the Codex Gigas, giant book, is the largest extant medieval illuminated manuscript in the world at a length of 92 centimeters or 36 inches. So I think that's like 36 feet. Oh, that's kind of creepy. On the Wikipedia page here, as an example of the picture, they're showing the devil illustrated in the book. Well, I did not choose to open to that page, but I suppose by revealing works of evil, you could learn to resist. Okay. Oh, that's cool. It looks kind of like a French horn here. Oh, and is this in Latin? Anyways. Codex. I'm looking at some beautiful looking book predecessors that were designed to last a long time. You don't make something with actual gold and stuff that's you're supposed to toss in the garbage can after, like a lot of our paperback books. A lot of these books, they were built to be durable. And here you could see a person showing the very scale of this book. So, you know, maybe even one person cannot move this alone. Maybe you need two people to set it up. So that is pretty cool. Viata says, well, that devil is one of the reasons people call it the Devil's Bible. BB says 3-foot book, so half the size of a human. Yeah, more than half the size if you're a manlet. I myself am under 6 feet tall, so it would count as more than 50% of my size. Though I think I'm not as square built as this book. Cool. Yeah, so this whole topic of books, I think most people know about like scrolls or have seen images of those. But if you go and you investigate even the history of the West, you don't even have to go far away and look at Arabic and stuff. The history of books, I've been looking at it a little bit, bookbinding. I was like, if I could just get a thread and sew together pieces of printer paper or something, maybe I could figure out how to hand make some pretty cool books. All right, next word. So just continuing a little bit of our tinfoil intrigue here is the Greek word planaō, which means to wander or lead wandering about, to lead astray, deceive or mislead, wander stray, some other similar senses. But this word planaō is where we get the English word planet from. And the Latin, likewise, they have a word that sounds similar to the English planeta, which also derives from this Greek word planaō. And so you would have the so-called zodiac stars, right? They're like fixed, and they move about in a predictable way. But then the wandering stars, the planets, when people would observe them, then they would seem to move all around the sky in different ways. So it's been harder to track and figure out their patterns. And one of the reasons I thought that this word was interesting was that in the East Asian languages, these are the Chinese characters for it. So this means kind of moving about, wandering. And then this is star. So in Chinese, this would be xing, xing. Korean, hengzong. Japanese, kōsei, something like that. And similar to the Greek, right? Totally different tradition. At least I'm assuming it's a different tradition, at least going pretty far back. Yet we see that the words for the planets are the same. All Greek, Latin, and I'll just say Chinese, encompassing Chinese, Japanese, Korean, as oftentimes those Sinosphere worlds collide. So, yes, more interesting things to look at with cosmology, past and present, and how really the current cosmology we're using now, of course, people will say, oh, big science, this is what all these facts and things that we have, this is the big brain, new way of looking at stuff. But then it's like all sorts of smart people for hundreds and hundreds of years have used different systems and used them successfully to do timekeeping and all sorts of stuff. So I will not simply dismiss the ancient wisdom. Instead, we will continue to learn bit by bit the etymologies, the history of the world as revealed through language. Okay, so getting back on topic, writing computers, codes, and trust. Let's talk a little bit about digital text. So maybe the main way in which most of us read articles, look at stories, and so on and so forth, even look up words in the dictionary, is using websites. Yet before websites, listed in decreasing durability, we had other writing sources, and I'm talking about, let's just say, since the 1700s at least or so. Stone, wood, and paper as examples of other places in which people have recorded information. Information is actually another interesting issue. We'll get more into that because information now has a distinct technical sense for digital information, but we'll use information in a kind of general way to mean recording stuff somehow. So, in the cover image for this stream, I showed an interesting monument related to writing computers, codes, and trusts, and that is the Georgia Guidestones. So I have not actually seen these in person myself, but I know people who have. You can see on the map, here's Georgia. It's considered to be in the south of the United States. And here's the view of the photo I used. There's writing in a bunch of different languages on this. Let's take a look at what the Georgia Guidestones are about. So, these mysterious stones in 8 modern languages, and a shorter message is inscribed at the top of the structure in 4 ancient language scripts. So maybe they didn't fully know how to write all those ancient languages, so they just wrote a little bit, but they had their language scholars able to translate the other ones. And it has an anonymous author. And that anonymous author with the pseudonym R.C. Christian approached the Elberton Granite Finishing Company on behalf of, quote, a small group of loyal Americans. Loyal to whom, you may ask, and commissioned the structure. Christian explained that the stones would function as a compass, calendar, and clock, and should be capable of withstanding catastrophic events. Alright, very interesting. And it looks like in the past, people had done graffiti on these stones, pointing out that they sound kind of New World Ordery. And here it says, Jesus will beat you, Satanists. You will not succeed. And then the feds had to come in to investigate this act of vandalism. Interesting. So let's see what's inscribed on these stones. Oh, and just really quick about this guy's name. So it's speculated that the R.C. Christian name might be an allusion to the Rosicrucians, who are known for spooky things. A spiritual and cultural movement that arose in Europe in the early 17th centuries. So some esoteric order, Hermeticism. We won't get into the specifics of that. But this person that calls themselves R.C. Christian puts up some creepy stones in stone, intending it for it to stay for a long time. And let's see what sort of messages are written on these. Number 1, maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature. So now let's assume that we have, what is the estimate? 8 billion? I'm not exactly sure. I haven't checked the figure recently, but certainly more than 500 million people alive. So in order to maintain humanity, then the population needs to go down. 2, guide reproduction wisely, improving fitness and diversity. So a lot of people would fall under some kind of undesirable camp. Maybe you have some kind of sickness. Maybe your people group is not liked by the people who built this. Interesting. Number 3, unite humanity with a living new language. Oh, we have an intelligence agent reporting some information to us. Viata says Google says 7.9 billion people in the world. All right, so we don't know if that's 6 billion plus 1.9 billion Twitter bots that are supposed to be people. We don't know the real figures, but let's just assume that BB says that seems reasonable as long as I'm part of the 500 million. Yes, this is like college freshmen. They read Plato's Republic, and they're like, oh yeah, I'll be you could be a philosopher king. All right, you get higher grades than me, but I get to be a noble guardian. I'm not one of those, dumb laborers, right? So I think that yes, probably the people that put up these stones, they envisioned themselves being among the 500 million. Maybe we all are too, because we noticed the Guidestones. We noticed RC Christian Senpai. So because we noticed Senpai, maybe Senpai will notice us too. Okay. Number 3, unite humanity with a living new language. 4, rule passion, faith, tradition, and all things with tempered reason. And you will be able to see that this reason stuff is big with these kind of deistic, esoteric, interested people. Reason based on what? Okay, bro, you're so based. Well, what are you based on? But you'll see as a memeing term, reason, just appearing everywhere. Listening to Enlightenment bros of the past. Okay, 5. Protect people and nations with fair laws and just courts. 6. Let all nations rule internally, resolving external disputes in a world court. So, for all those allegations of, oh, are you making a new world order? It's like, no, we just have our stones in 8 languages and we're talking about a world court, you know? What are you talking about? 7. Avoid petty laws and useless officials. 8. Balance personal rights with social duties. 9. Prize truth, beauty, love, seeking harmony with the infinite. And 10. Be not a cancer on the earth. Leave room for nature. Leave room for nature. So, somebody decided to have these written on stone, or some party. I don't even know if it was a person. Maybe it was a randomized process where people drew slips of paper and then they were like, all right, the first 10 things we're going to draw, we're going to have carved on these stones. But it's just like in the United States, you have the existence of something like this. Oh, that's interesting too. It's near Athens, Georgia. So that's another interesting feature of the United States. There's all sorts of places named after cities in the so-called Old World. And you see these really impressive looking buildings that I don't even know how you would have something like this built today. If you wanted a building like this built today, could you even get it commissioned? How much would it cost? And would putting up a dome like this, would this pass building code? Or would they say, no, if there's an earthquake, it will fall down? How did people even do this sort of thing? In a previous stream I had called the constructive question stream or something, I was saying I have no idea how people construct these things. So if anybody knows, feel free to let me know, but I don't know. On the other hand, you could look at, for example, the history of computer science. So somebody sent me this article by John von Neumann. So if you want to look up how computer science stuff works, how operating systems and all these things were developed, then all of these things, it's open source. You could find out all this information and understand all the intricate details about how modern day computers and stuff are put together. And you have elaborate diagrams and stuff talking about those processes. But then we look at really intense buildings like this, and it's like, how was that built? We don't really know. Yet, when was that building built? So let's look at their city hall. Pretty marvelous city hall building. Do they have a page on it? Nope. So maybe here, 1830s, 1840s. So that was even before California was in the Union. George says, hi, Alan. Hello, team. Viola says, I find it interesting how people could build cathedrals back then. Today is easy to understand given the advent of engineering fields, but back then is crazy, right? So it's like now we could see with cranes and stuff, we know big loads and stuff could be moved, but then you look at the time period back then and you see like it's like the Wild West imagery of rough and ready, covered wagons, just some horses. Now we know, of course, you could watch videos of how crazy big skyscrapers and stuff are being built, but how did they get that dome up there? So I thought this was a really interesting topic once I heard about it, because like jokingly people will say stuff like, oh, how did they build the pyramids? Did they, how did they move those rocks? Maybe it was UFOs, stuff like that. But then you even look closer to home and you say, like, how did they build the City Hall building in Georgia? I don't know. This thing was probably pretty expensive to build. An anonymous guy called R.C. Christian had some giant granite slabs moved into place. So that sort of thing, perhaps we could see a little bit more of how this is done. But this does not look nearly as impressive as like that old City Hall building in Georgia, for instance. All right. Oh, another funny thing here. This Greek word planaω, another sense was of this word is to wander in speaking or digress. So I just made the word relevant for this stream, in that if it seems like we were wandering off course, we were just behaving in a planetary type of manner. So that's that. Okay, and then I just had a quick link here that, so associated with the Georgia Guidestone stuff is all this talk about reason this, reason that. And if you look at some of the talk about that reason stuff, we have, for example, this work, The Age of Reason, being an investigation of true and fabulous theology. This is by Thomas Paine, arguing for the philosophical position of deism. And then he was also known for his pamphlet, Common Sense, here, advocating independence from Great Britain for the 13 colonies. So perhaps we'll have to do, I'll add it to the future topics. If Common Sense isn't too long, we could actually do some more deep dives into American lore, understanding the foundations of the United States, and not assuming these guys are just heroic freedom fighters, but looking deeper too at their esoteric leanings. So here we could just see, looking at Common Sense. The second section considers monarchy first from a biblical perspective, and then from a historical perspective. He begins by arguing that since all men are equal at creation, the distinction between kings and subjects is a false one. So you could say before God, like, kings and subjects are all creation, so there's a sense in which all people are equal. But does that mean that there aren't poor people and rich people in the world? Like, no. So I don't know what biblical perspective this guy was smoking. So we'll have to see Common Sense, see if it really is a pretty reasonable, sensible document, or if it's a bunch of deistic wish-wash propaganda by some people with some funny haircuts. Not that I don't have a funny haircut myself. And here we could see Common Sense, how it was distributed as stacks of paper, so maybe the predecessor to the paperback book. So it was created to quickly and cheaply distribute to lots of people. And we'll be getting into this more too. Okay, so let's just go back to this topic of various places where people write stuff. So something that's written in stone, obviously expensive, heavy. You don't want to carry around and pass around stone. So if something is written in stone, it's meant to stay there for a long, long time. Then you go down into less and less durable stuff down to paper. Then the advantage of paper is it's cheaper to produce and more easily distributed. And now we could see that even lighter than paper, so stone sinks, wood floats, paper could blow in the wind, and then even above that we have the digital stuff in which we encode information. And information you could think of as not even material, like zeros and ones. One thing that people talk about is like information and what sort of substrate it's on. So like you could say we could record a bunch of digital information. We could download the whole internet and like store it in a crystal. Now what would that mean? Well, it'd mean in the crystal there's some ways to represent a 0 and 1. So you could store the information of the whole internet by flipping all the switches into the proper zeros and ones, and then provided that you have the correct sort of device to read it, then you could successfully do that. Right. And then, so this substrate stuff here, this is also the basis by which you get these transhumanist people, and they'll say something like, all right, all human consciousness is really a program running. It's just information processing. So if we took all the data of how all the neurons and stuff in your brains are connected, and then we uploaded it to the internet, so just your consciousness state, zeros and ones, and then you transferred that state to the cloud, someone else's computer, some server somewhere, then the idea is that you could upload your consciousness. So now in our current age, right, we see digital information. Some people see, oh yeah, so that's even, it's like writing, it's information abstracted beyond the medium of stone, wood, and paper. So these things, even the most durable stone, could be blown up and washed away. But if you could reduce a person down to just like information, then you could just copy them. You could, use an even stronger material. You could have all these ways in which to be kind of infinite or, eternal in some sense. So I don't believe any of that, but that's just to say that if you look up transhumanism, kind of philosophy of mind stuff, especially of pop science flavor, not so much like serious people that go really, really deep into this, but sort of pop science speculation and also media concerning this stuff, you will find that those ideas that I suggested are all over the place. If I just search like transhumanism information mind, let's see what comes up on Google. Okay, so we get some fancy graphics of like uploading the brain. You get a brain and a big chip thing, some nodes, some server rack looking thing. And yeah, so we even have like a whole, okay, let's look at this QZ and let's look at Wikipedia really quick. So for quartz, if our thoughts live forever, do we do 2? And I think this guy's a pretty well-known transhumanist guy. Let's see what he has to say. It says, since there's no guarantee we will successfully cheat death by conquering aging and disease through biological experiments, we need to turn to science and technology to produce an everlasting version. So, like infinite, as the Georgia Guidestones were saying, of the human beings. Like many transhumanists, I believe we must rely on non-flesh means. Think robots, AI, and other technological methods to create a digital copy of a human that could survive forever. With universities and tech companies building technology that could one day connect your mind directly to the internet, the debate is no longer theoretical. We need definite answers to questions about the nature of our future digital selves, and we need them now. 21st century science has yielded many ways to replicate ourselves. We can clone ourselves, though it's illegal just about everywhere. We can implant pre-existing memories into people's brains. We should soon be able to upload the data of our consciousness to a mainframe. and engineers in Silicon Valley are already working on brain implants that allow machines to understand human thought in real time. Okay, so I bring up all this and just an actual article on Quartz to show, it sounds like science fiction, but then you have people that I would say are seriously talking about this stuff. So this fellow, he brands himself as a transhumanist, and here Vice, NYT, BBC, Discovery Channel, Evening Standard. So by no means a fringe guy, in that he is featured in all these mainstream publications and stuff. So as tinfoil as I am, talking about, oh look, the Chinese word for planet is like the Latin and Greek one, and people have always called them wandering stars. As crazy as that might seem, then you get stuff like the transhumanist wager being really mainstream promoted. Here, like New Yorker describes it as an Ayn Rand-esque manifesto, the biggest novel on the transhumanist scene. It reads like Dan Brown's undergraduate thesis, a rollicking plot setting our futurist thought manifesto style. So people are seriously hyped by this modern day pamphlet. Immortality or bust. Alright, so enough looking at this futurist fellow's website. Let's really quick look if there's any striking graphics on the Mind uploading page. Nope. Anyways, if anyone finds anything, feel free to send it my way. Curious to see. When was this made? Humani Victus Instrumenta. Looks like someone didn't do the dishes. Okay, BB says, for the record, I forgot to introduce myself in Xa's Discord. I'll do that later. But yes, we're in fact working on analyzing brain data from brain implants in Silicon Valley. My current company is working on big data analytics for brain implants, but we are not part of the transhuman movement. Cool. So we got some high-tech people here. I was before being in Sacramento, I was at UC Davis, and all sorts of stuff goes on there. Of course, they got big cognitive science departments and things going on there. But another thing they have is a lot of animal research. They're famous for their veterinarian school and stuff like that. So insofar as technology that might eventually be going to humans, we could already see commercial applications, such as one thing I brought up here on this stream, which has been around for over 10 years, I guess, which is doing stuff like microchipping your cat. Like, I haven't had a pet cat before. I visited people's pet cats. I never did an audit and said, is your cat microchipped? But it looks like for quite a while now, people have been chipping the kitty cats. So that's cool, though. If there are friends of the show who are knowledgeable about what's going on in biotech, we could get some nice tips and hints and discuss what is coming. We could build the ultimate ergonomic keyboard. So I'll just bring up, for those of you who don't know who Xali is, I've promoted my stream. Xali has generously let me do that on his channel. One of this fellow's big subjects is talking about various computer peripherals like mice and keyboards. A lot of people find his work through having like hand pain, what they call RSI, repetitive strain injury. So then they start researching keyboards so their hands won't hurt as much, or they could not injure themselves typing. So Xali is well known on the internets for talking about this topic among others, and you can see on his site, he archives. He does a great job doing internet archiving of like keyboards, so a handful of niche topics. And yeah, so related though to sort of brain interface stuff, one of the things that we're seeing the start of is brain chips, so that someone is paralyzed or has some kind of motor disability, something like that. What if people could just type on computers, interact with smartphones and things using brain waves? So to have some device that reads that and then allows somebody to interact with the computer with their brain, then that would totally bypass the needs for keyboard. Now, mind you, on Alan's stream here, we're cutting edge. We've already bypassed the need for keyboards. You see, we're talking, and I'm showing my hands here. I'm not typing on the keyboard. So we have the ancient non-technology way of just good old speech to do the job. But, you know, people are working on a lot of tools to try to solve that issue of it takes work and some people cannot type. Okay. So let's talk a little bit more about the nature of the digital information medium as opposed to paper, wood, or stone. I think that one defining feature of the digital medium is that oftentimes it is centralized. So like I have a dictionary here, you know, Greek dictionary on my desk. I have my own copy. If Oxford Press, it looks like, yeah, or Penguin, I don't know who published it, I could check later. If they decide to change their source text that they use to print more of these, the copy on my desk doesn't change because it's already printed. It's already a physical medium. Now, the way that the digital stuff works is I'm requesting a web page from somebody's site. And if they change it on their server, then they could actually change the document that I'm trying to access. So, of course, we often use links to just say, oh, here, watch my video. You send a link, which is different from handing someone a book. If I hand you the book, this isn't a link to the text. This is actually, you know, the whole text that I'm talking about. Whereas a lot of internet communication is centered around sharing links to various stuff. And then the links will depend on the servers that host the websites where those links are doing to reliably provide that information. So you could think of this being very, very different from paper, wood, and stone in this respect that you cannot easily change stone, wood, or paper. In fact, we have the whole area of like forensics and stuff, which people would say, oh yeah, you know, here you gave us this document, but it looks like, you know, you went over it with whiteout, you changed it. Whereas with the digital thing, there's no footprints or fingerprints in that same way. The methods to do forensic digital stuff would be different. You know, it might be analyzing server logs, doing stuff like that. We could add that to our future topic. I think digital forensics might be the phrase they use. Cool. So yeah, you have these big old stone things, like for example, one famous example is the Rosetta Stone. And you know, this Rosetta Stone, it doesn't have so many pages, but in many ways it's a much more stable, reliable thing I could count on, as opposed to, say, like the other day I was looking up some words in Spanish, and I went to SpanishDictionary.com, and then eventually they're trying to make me sign in and stuff. I used up the maximum number of words I was supposed to use, and that made it so I no longer had access to what, if I just had a paper dictionary on hand, I would be able to use a Spanish dictionary and look up as many words as I wanted to look up. Anyways, this Spanish dictionary site too, now that I pulled it up, I just want to remark, like, I don't know, who are these like Georgia Guidestone people? Who are the people that are pushing our world in this new direction? You could see here they have like a ziggurat, They got some tall skyscraper that actually resembles the One World Trade Center building, which I'll pull up. This was built by the former World Trade Center site, but it's called the One World Trade Center, and you can see that big, I guess it's kind of recursive. Is that an icon of itself? It's on their logo. Anyways, it's like, I got the tallest stick in the sky. It's kind of a, where did my, oh, here, Spanish dictionary. Yeah, then that's like the tallest thing here. And then they show the future kind of chunky dude. A person, looks like they're proposing or giving flowers to a handicapped disabled partner. Two gender ambiguous people walking by a cathedral that's shorter than the big modernity phallus. You got some people of different colors hanging out. A parent with their kid, but only one parent, or maybe it's not even a parent. Two more gender ambiguous people. And then here, this is like the Space Needle, another modern looking thing, and then you could see these old sorts of buildings in the background. And for those of you who did not see what I showed on the previous stream, this Space Needle thing seems to be the site of quite some interesting action. You can see this is like DNA flowers, all sorts of tentacles, all sorts of weird esoteric stuff. Yet, when I'm just trying to look up words in Spanish, estudiar español, then what am I greeted with then? Hi, Adblock user. All right, maybe later. You have 4 pages remaining. A ziggurat, One World Trade Center, Statue of Liberty, and the Statue of Liberty is the sun god, Sol Invictus. Like, tell me that's not what the Statue of Liberty is supposed to be channeling. What is the Statue of Liberty symbolizing? And then like the Space Needle, where they're showing all this DNA and all this weird stuff. So here I am, just trying to be a good global citizen and learn some Spanish, and then I'm bombarded with the return of sun worship in a new world order. I didn't ask for this, but that's the world we're in today. So let us learn about it together. That's why we have Alan's stream. Okay. So we talked a little bit about the properties of digital information, digital as opposed to paper, wood, and stone, as a medium for storing or conveying, sending information. I just want to bring quickly attention to this famous quote by communications expert Marshall McLuhan, which is, "The medium is the message." So we could just look that up. I believe I actually have a paper copy of his book. Let me grab it really quick. Yeah, so I got this book here. The medium is the message, and I have it in paper, so I could get the paper medium. And in this book, there's all sorts of interesting stuff. Like, I'll just show one page. Anyways, he's like a communications theorist. So, another person we might want to study on stream. Let's just take a look at what Wiki says. McLuhan proposes that a communication medium itself, not the message it carries, should be the primary focus of study. He showed that artifacts as media affect any society by their characteristics or content. So funny how it's him that says this, communications theorist. So if that is true, let's just say, the medium is the message, then what is the nature of the digital medium? Well, basically it is centralized control. Like, how else could you put it, right? So if you have centralized server, someone else's computer, and you're routing all your communication through a centralized server, then the medium is the message. So what's the message? You don't own anything, and you're routing all your information and stuff through a third party. That would be what the message is. And right, an etymology that we continue to revisit on this stream is that of the term cybernetics. So let us go back to cybernetics really quick on Wiktionary. And right, Kybernetikos, good at steering, a good pilot. So theory science of communication and control in the animal and the machine. The art study of governing, controlling automatic processes of communication, technology related to computers and the internet. So what the medium is the message. What is the message? The message is central authority steering and controlling you, basically. So, okay, back on topic to writing computers, code, and trust. So I want to point out, right, so computers, internet, maybe this is like a very advanced stage of a system of getting to that level of control. Like you could even say, like with paper and stuff, being able to widespread distribute pamphlets, control information in that way, maybe that's a predecessor, a first step that's going to lead to this eventual digital, centralized, near instant control. But if we go back and we look at history, we could see that even the beginnings of the origins of writing as a human communication have been dealing with stuff like law, money, all these aspects of life that like governments or powers could control. So in this sense, there's nothing new under the sun. There's this researcher I read, Richard Sproat. I have read a bunch of his books. But he's got this pretty cool boomer style website. Richard Sproat. Sure. And now he's based in Japan. Anyways, from this fellow, I learned a bunch about like a theory of writing, things like that. So he describes like writing as a graphical system. Graphical, you could say two-dimensional. So when you're writing things, letters on a page, 2 dimensions. So one dimensional, maybe like Morse code might be one dimensional, and then graphical might be 2-dimensional, and then maybe 3-dimensional. You add in time to it. I don't know exactly how you would do that, but anyways, he's an academic who's done a lot of work both on technical type practical systems, and he has also done like theoretical, more history stuff. So like with writing, he would trace how the origins of writing would go back to a lot of like accounting type stuff. People saying like, how much of this or that do we have in a granary? So data, writing, administration, all of these topics have always intersected as far back as we know about writing. And it seems so far our friend Reaper hasn't popped in the stream, but I was hoping to show him he has competition for being the baddest skeleton on the block. So I might have to send this to friend of the show Reaper later. Anyways, let us return here. So writing has long had associations with governance, and we could see now in the digital era the increasing reach of digital stuff on our lives represents, the medium itself represents a increased centralized control. another interesting to look at too. We could even talk about like this whole word medium. So the medium is a message. We talk about medium as in, what am I writing on? Is it paper? Is it stone? And so on and so forth. But of course, medium has those associations with like person that channels spirits and stuff. So we could check out in English. So it comes from, here we have a bunch of definitions. Material of the surrounding environment, like solid, liquid, gas, vacuum. Materials are empty space through which signals, waves, or forces pass. A format for communicating or representing information. So you could say, like with speech, for example, the medium would be like the air, so sound waves going through the air. And you have to be in close enough proximity that somebody could happen to do direct face-to-face interaction. So then the medium is like normal speech going through the air from your mouth to their ears. But with digital communication, it's different, right? It's all mediated by some other things. So in academia, there's this word, computer-mediated communication. It's kind of their fancy way to talk about this idea. Yeah, so computer-mediated communication is defined as any human communication that occurs through two or more electronic devices. So right now, all of y'all watching the stream, we're all going through computer-mediated communication because it's me talking to my peripherals, and then it's all routing through YouTube, and then it's getting to you eventually. And we could study more properties of this, like say, it could be asynchronous, and that after this stream, for instance, people could go ahead and view this or add comments and so on and so forth. So communication theorists will have all sorts of terms of ways to talk about all these things. We won't get into that. I just wanted to go back to this word medium, so we use it for medium of information. But then also too, then an older or a different sense would be someone who supposedly conveys information from the spirit world. So this sense is interesting. And of course, there's also this popular website called Medium that I think they're a heavily paywalled type site. Very not pleasant to use, but we won't complain about Medium here. But here, Medium is a place to read, write, read, and connect. It's free. It's easy and free to post your thinking on any topic and connect with millions of readers. So if the medium is the message, what is the medium of Medium? The medium of Medium, the website is, you could use this centralized control sort of system in order to quickly author and share information with more people. But we're also encouraging you to engage in our subscription model. And then, of course, them as their service, then they could choose sort of what stories they promote, what they shadow ban, and so on and so forth. So what are they like? The art of seeing, how Thoreau improved my vision, unveiling family secrets through at-home DNA testing, scenes from quarantine, NFTs are crucial for the future of art. What if we aren't as divided as they tell us? And so on and so forth. So with the digital medium now, you could just amplify all these different signals. Whereas in the past, maybe it would be quite an undertaking and costly to write something and distribute some information in a relatively like permanent form, like some sort of writing. Then now that has become relatively cheap and easy for many people to do, but also we have tons and tons of noise to navigate. All right. So let's talk a little bit about trust and codes. So we talked about writing and then the medium of computers. So I'm kind of equating computers and digital media. Now let's talk about how codes and encryption fits into all of this. So I have a quote from a book, the Code book. I have not read the whole book, but I looked at some of it. So here's a quote. Code breakers are linguistic alchemists, a mystical tribe attempting to conjure sensible words out of meaningless symbols. The history of codes and ciphers is the history of centuries-old battle between code makers and code breakers, an intellectual arms race that has had a dramatic impact on the course of history. So, in case any of you don't know about encoding, what encoding could be is you take some sort of like A to B is the name of the function. So I'm going to type a string, hello, this is a string, and then I run this function and it smashes it into an unrecognizable mess of characters. Now this is a very primitive encryption that I'm showing here. There's all sorts of ways in which it's not just a single function that goes one way. Uh-oh. Something messed up. Maybe I was supposed to do this. Let's see. Okay, yeah. And then let's decode that message right here. Let's decode. So maybe as a child you played around with sending secret messages or codes. Uh-oh. Let's go. A equals. Failed live demo. Should have came prepared. Something like that. No. Oh no, I did the same function. There we go. I just showed it. BB says, good book on the history of cryptography. Easy to digest if you're new to the field. Cool. So I might have to take a further look at it. Anyway, so the basic idea though with cryptography is you want to ensure that only you and the party that you're trying to contact with is getting the message that you want to send. So like this would be like a really primitive way to do it. If you knew about this little function in your browser, you could send your friend like a message like this, and then if your friend knows how to decode it, then they could be like, oh, I feel like a sneaky, secret agent hacker person, and then they could decode the message, and your mom couldn't read it, whatever. So that's the idea here with codes and code breakers generally. Now, codes and code encryption stuff is essential to the current operations of the internet with computers and writing because of personalized experiences on the internet. So this is the so-called dynamic internet, Web 2.0, where like you log onto a Facebook account. Your view of Facebook is different from somebody else's account on Facebook. We're joined by our friend Reaper. Hi Reaper, what's up? We're talking about encryption. Okay, returning to personalized experiences. Okay, so back in the day with the internet, there's a lot of websites that you would call just pamphlet type websites. Anybody accessing the server would have the same view. Now, any sort of website that has a login, then they're going to be using some sorts of encryption and stuff to make sure that it knows it's contacted with you, whoever's logged in some form. So you could see how encryption is very, very often built into how we interact with the internet. And that's including like here, me on YouTube. Not anybody could use like, quote, my channel. I could only use it because I have a particular code that says, all right, we confirm that you're the person who says they are, and therefore we're letting you stream in this way. Likewise, anybody who's making comments, using the interactive feature, they're going to have an account, though anybody could view it. So setting up these rules, permissions, stuff like this is a big deal with the website stuff. So how is this different. So we could even look at like the Georgia Guidestones. All right, there's actually no login required to go and check out the Georgia Guidestones. You could just go access this. You could sneak up from any different number of directions and kind of check out what's happening. And as far as I could tell, these things aren't keeping like a visitor log. Maybe there's like a guest book at the site where you could sign your name and say when you visited. But as far as I could tell, there's nothing like that. Now, on the other hand, the nature of a lot of this encryption stuff is the servers, the centralized computers, will be able to associate action, so like access events to the server. They won't just know that like this page was visited by someone. If you choose to use this login features, then the website will know, oh yeah, it was this person who were confirmed also did this thing, does this and this and that. So that'll all be associated with a particular account. Now, what we're going to see in the future is more and more integrated logins, I think. So one thing people are talking about, for example, is like a digital ID passport type system. So it won't just be like, oh yeah, I'm Al and then this is my Google account. The more and more they could tie like my Google account to me proper. So now it's still the case that like you might have like 4 or 5 different accounts. But what if all your accounts were kind of integrated? So we could see a lot of efforts to develop these sorts of things. All right, let's use cookies. So here, what is this site about? GSMA. What are they about? What do you do? Global organization in unifying the mobile ecosystem to discover, develop, and deliver innovative, foundational to positive business environments and societal change. Our vision is to unlock the full power of connectivity so that people, industry, and society thrive. And then some happy looking people using their technology. Representing mobile operators and organizations across the mobile ecosystem and adjacent industries, the GSMA delivers for its members across 3 broad pillars: industry services and solutions, connectivity for good, and outreach. Okay, we don't need to read all their corporate stuff. This is just to say that we're seeing rolled out all around digital identities generally coming all around the world, and oftentimes it's under a response to the thing that one does not freely discuss on YouTube. So the thing has opened the door to greater adoption of dynamic digital ID systems. Governments must now find a way to deliver on its transformation potential. So what is digital ID? It's not a simple concept to define. It may be easier to consider the origins of legal identities themselves. So, interesting to say, right, digital ID is a new specific technological implementation, but you could look at how these ideas have gone back further in history where, right, even the whole idea of the legal definition of a person, it's before my time, but like, you could find interviews or talk to people that say, I remember, before there were birth certificates or before there were social security numbers, maybe even before driver's licenses. I don't know. But I'm used to being born into a world and just having all these digital accounts and numbers that are basically used to define me insofar as I'm interfacing with the institution. I just used the word interfacing to talk about me, a person, and society. My, we have come a far way. Okay, so official letters from a local authority were traditionally used to establish credentials and privileges of the carrier. And then some history. In the medieval Islamic world, they even included an economic component with an indication of whether tax obligations had been paid. Such documents were known to allow an individual to pass beyond the city gates, or port in French, thus giving passports their name. All right. BB says, careful saying digital iota delta too many times will get you added to the naughty list as well. All right, we gotta think of a another way to say it. The 0 and 1 id. I'll just use that for now. Actually, that's a good point. We'll be returning to this topic of kind of workarounds and modern day encryption strategies that have always been with us. All right. Reaper is perplexed as to why we're focusing on the Guidestones. Well, you could watch the beginning of the stream when the stream's over. We've said a lot about them. Viata says, red herring. He is showing it to make you think he is a Rose Cross and not a federal agent. All right. Okay, so just some general notes. I'll just read what I wrote here. Note that security for any cloud-based service involves the cloud service provider making promises to you, the user, about how, quote, your data is safe with them. Your data isn't in your hands to begin with. So this is just, in reality, it's not your data. Rather, you're given permissions through cryptographic secrets, passwords, biometrics, etc. to access or save storage containers, digital services, and things you subscribe to. So you could think of it almost like, a bank, and they store a bunch of your money in a big vault, and then you have access to like go in and reach there. Now, if the bank goes bankrupt, something happens, then suddenly, as that service fails, then too, you didn't really own the stuff that's in there. It was just based on a service model. You had a promise for that sort of thing. So not really a new idea, but just to say in our digital world now, we could see how in more and more areas that sort of like bank model, the account model, is put everywhere. All right. Since you are interfacing with someone else's computer, so servers, what may appear to the user as a secure secret is in reality a pipeline for big tech. Assuming big tech is involved in your cloud service stuff, which it probably is, AWS, Azure, whatever, they're huge, to aggregate more and more data on you through analyzing your behavior. So it's like everyone's given their little digital tunnel to big tech. And the privacy is sort of defending and making sure that that's only your tunnel to use. But at the end of the day, the tunnel does go to the big, what do you call it? The big party, the big tech, whoever. And, right, so privacy, security. So I think most people that are watching my stream are kind of more technical people. But I do know just like a lot of normal people talking about this stuff, they'll ask questions like, oh, is it privacy, secure? What's happening? Can I trust this thing? So one thing near me is the so-called smart meters. These little robo data gathering things that, they could record how much you flush your toilet and use a shower and, use natural gas, whatever. I don't know the specifics. But pretty much always with anything that's related to smart this or that, collecting data on the FAQs and stuff, you'll always see a question that has to do with privacy stuff. So here, for this one, how are privacy and my smart meter data managed? And then you could get some delicious corporate word salad. So let's enjoy that salad together, all of us. Protecting your information is a top priority. We apply the same privacy protection standards to all data we collect. We treat your personal information as confidential, and we are consistent with all regulatory requirements of the California Public Utilities Commission, CPUC. Read our customer information privacy policy. And then you could go and you could read their privacy policy, which I'm not going to read on stream because that would be onerous. BB says, because you've posted this video on YouTube, you are now legally owned by Google. You're simply renting your likeliness from Google, which is now being used to train an imaging model. Yeah, BB, that is actually totally correct. So another topic we've been exploring on the Allen stream is the metaverse, the avatars, things like that. So, even just from the tiny little image of me in the corner of the screen, I imagine that, the technology exists that you could crop out that little element. Maybe they could even emulate, all my browser window setup and use machine learning, whatever, to deep fake Allen stream if they chose to spend their time and their resources doing that. But then again, this is important. This is the idea of, right, the medium is the message. So if you're able to reduce people down to accounts, so to say, all you are is your information, then suddenly, for example, if you wanted to have more democracy, what does democracy mean? Voting, representation, and all that. But if you're able to just clone people to make more entities of the thing that agrees with you, this would be like bots or sock puppets on Twitter, right? You could create the illusion of popularity for something. You could boost up someone's prestige in a system because the nature of the system is everybody staring at their little black monolith slab thing. That is a computer monitor or a smart device. And then if you could have non-human entities such as programmed robot, whatever, that have the same voting rights, I'll just call it voting rights, then effectively people have the illusion, oh yeah, I'm participating, I'm free, and so on and so forth. But if decisions are being made by counts, by the numbers, then counting accounts, there could be tons of accounts that are not people, such that you're always going to lose that vote. So let's continue here. So how do these things come to be? One method I just mentioned here in a couple paragraphs I'll read. So letting automated systems handle processes like bookkeeping, filing documents, and more can be very convenient to comply with onerous bureaucratic requirements. So I say convenient with quote marks to say that the very systems is not about actually getting something done, but you create these problems that then a computerized system would be better at solving. So for example, for me to walk across the room, if I don't have to do any paperwork, then that's easy. I just walk across the room. But if there's all this paperwork that is involved for me to walk across my room, then suddenly somebody could be like, oh yeah, I have a software solution to help you walk across the room, because you can't walk across the room unless you verify this and this biometric, blah 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 blah. So here's my solution for $10 a month, and then you're allowed to walk across the room, and it's more convenient because you have a program. But the convenience only exists because some onerous requirements and some problem is imposed upon you. So I just gave the example of walking across my room, but maybe we wind back 50, 60 years or something, maybe people would say the same thing about being required to pay to park a car. Yeah, I don't know. So you could definitely see how, I don't want to go down just slippery slope, but you could say how the next logical step, the next area is obvious. Maybe in the past people would laugh at the idea of paying for water. Nowadays we kind of half jokingly say what are they going to do next? Tax air? And the answer is yes. It's all that carbon footprint CO2 stuff. So you will just wait. Let's see. Viata says every 3 people posing here, 1 is a YouTuber bot. Yeah, there's a bunch bots. Though we have our Reaper here who has I believe he has the privileges to strike down those bots. So we have heightened security. Reaper says, I'm guessing Facebook also owns the rights to Alan's simulacra. Yeah, so there's these things. I'll just pull them up. Facebook, I think they call them a ghost count, which is even if you don't own or have your own Facebook account, shadow profile, then Facebook is inferring your existence. Shadow profile. So it's like a node placeholder for you. So maybe you quit Facebook and stuff, but then Facebook will create a profile for you. And this is actually one of the reasons why I continue to have a Facebook. I know a lot of like anti-Facebook, I quit Facebook people, but one reason I have a Facebook account still is saying if they're just going to make a shadow profile of me anyways, then I might as well actually just have my own account, so I'll at least be able to, modify or own my account and express some direct control over it in at least a couple more ways. Anyways, here. So even if you never sign up to Facebook, the social network has information on you in the form of Facebook shadow profiles. And these guys, they're definitely not glowing. They're not glowies. They're shadows, you see. So let's take a look. Everyone knows that Facebook collects personal data, but shadow profiles are one of the more intrusive methods the social network uses. In a nutshell, shadow profiles mean that even if you've never used Facebook, the website may have information about you stored away. So they'll create these, and why do they do that? If you ask someone from Facebook, they may say that shadow profiling is essential for the people you know feature. So they posit you as the missing link. You're the missing link between these friend groups. Then they could help the people you may know feature better by theoretically making you. BB says, this is one of the reasons why I rotate my personal cell phone number every 6 months. Yeah, I have like an alternative phone, and like I still get all these old text messages from it. There aren't even that many phone numbers relative to other things, so it's kind of just rotating the phone number will probably do a great job to just scramble and keep stuff moving. Let's see. Reaper says, lol, such rationalist reasoning for having a Facebook account to look at cat videos. BB says, shadow avatars already exist. If someone has your phone number in their phone and they are on social media, then that social media company has a profile on you. Yeah, I've seen this too, like with phone number associated apps and stuff, they'll do all this, what do you call it? People you may know, even like automatically adding friends and stuff. I know, like you download a new messaging app or something, it'll probably like scan your phone and try to connect you with a whole bunch of people. So all sorts of stuff going on with this. We could let the weeb see the the Naruto shadow clones. That's Facebook. That's you. Okay. All right. So, just here today, we just did a basic description. Writing long has had a history with laws, money, regulations, stuff like that. Computers, now it's a centralized, much more centralized way in which we communicate and do a lot of things. So the medium is the message. The nature of computers is a lot of centralized control. Codes are often used to ensure that you have a secure connection with that central server. So insofar as privacy is being protected, it's not guaranteed privacy between like you and the people that you're talking to, but rather you could say maybe a secure pipeline first to the central server and then to the friend that you're talking to. But basically, for any digital type communications that has a centralized server, at least, I'll just assume, it's routing through the spooky boys. And so a lot of our actions that we're trusting, whenever we use digital systems, we're trusting that the spooky boys and all of their setup is working properly. And the trust is that, they will protect us from cyber attack or whatever. So they've inserted themselves into, and by they I mean big tech government, all these things. The establishment has inserted themselves into all sorts of different areas of life, and they demand our trust. They don't patiently ask and wait for our trust, but make a shadow profile on you if you do not trust them. Okay. So my next section here, we're not a doomer stream. We want to just analyze stuff, say things how they are, and then also to just give valuable information too about like why we should not despair, what are alternatives, how do we respond to basically what is just like fact about how the internet works, how a lot of communication works. So there are, here I just said, simple hard work and friendship could go a long way. By sharing more, giving more, and being more public, we bypass the fear, risk, etc. that make security big business. And that's one of the reasons I'm here on YouTube. I'm just like Google. If you know all sorts of stuff anyways, well, here, you want to take crumbs of data, let me give you a data sandwich. Enjoy, glowy boys. Let's be friends. One thing I was thinking about was in scripture, in the Bible, there's a lot of parables in the gospel books. And with these parables, it's like a public message being broadcasted to everybody that's in the area. But many meanings are, quote, hidden in plain sight. And that if you're not seeking to hear, seeking to learn, then you will not be able to understand the parable. If you already assume you know what's going on and all of that, then even if you did intercept the message, it's like, well, they're just talking about like seeds and farmers and stuff. What does this even have to do with me? So if the content of the messages themselves are there's nothing to be censored. It's like you're just talking about, fish or plants or just normal stuff. Then it's not like, for example, on this stream, even in the chat today, we've talked about how like naughty words and things could get people in trouble. So speaking truth using plain words, no secret passwords or anything is needed, means that the speech restricting people have no power over you with automated tools. Like, are they just going to ban people from talking about absolutely everything normal? So who knows? Maybe Alan's stream will be exclusively like us just talking about like gardening tools and bookbinding. Like, I don't know. Maybe that will happen. But that's to say that a lot of the automated tools and control mechanisms that people have, at the end of the day, they're rather crude tools, and the machines, the computers, they never really understand. So they could try to catch people out, like you mentioned, the Second World War mustache man with the, swirly thing symbol, then of course you're going to likely be flagged and you might run into all sorts of trouble talking about what he did and whether he was justified in what he did. Now, on the other hand, if you talk about ideologies and things that they teach at universities or whatever, and you speak just plainly using normal language, not trying to hint, wink, wink with all these secret words and stuff, then you're pretty free. So that's actually an ongoing experiment that I have here on YouTube, which is just like we're pulling up Wikipedia and stuff and just talking about info that's public there. BB says, are they going to ban you from speaking in general? Don't give them any ideas. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. I think now, and this also too would fit under sort of Christian strategies. It's like if you're low to the ground, then you're less likely to be targeted or anything. So this is such a low profile channel, such a small channel. I think for long time I could be able to record some information, say some stuff, send it to people, no problem. Now if I was like rushing to get monetized and do all sorts of stuff, there's like a Japanese saying too, like the peg that sticks up gets hammered down, something like that. In the same way that if you were to use your channel, use the medium at YouTube and stuff, and sort of seek it for financial gain or something, then that could spell big trouble for you because you make yourself a target. Whereas if you just continue to do your thing, put in the work, and then who knows what will come up with YouTube. Like I don't make any money on YouTube now, though it's been a great experience, meet all sorts of people, share the video, so it's been providing value. I certainly don't say like, oh yeah, it's been terrible, I regret it, but it's not like monetization. So if you don't care about the little skittles and trinkets and tokens that they're trying to lure you in with, then suddenly like I could just make great use of their platform, and probably I would estimate that overall me doing this stream, they're probably actually losing a bunch of money because it takes a ton of infrastructure and technology and all that in order to support a stream, uploads, people from all the world viewing a video and stuff, and like I don't hand them a cent. So it could actually be at the end of the day that I'm like way profiting off them, which is pretty cool. Okay. And then, so an example of this, and actually Reaper Grim here, he sent me this video. In recent times, people have used this technique of like similar to parables in the Bible to talk about a lot of current events. So there's this fellow named Awaken with JP, and like he did this skit, why you need a second life jacket. So a fellow that has 2 life jackets is pressuring the guy who only got 1 life jacket to get a second life jacket. So I won't go into the specifics of what this is about. You could check out the Waking with JP channel if you're interested. But this is a similar sort of parable type strategy in that, are they going to get people in trouble for talking about life jackets? I've heard people use all sorts of other words and things to talk about various issues in parable or code, whatever you want to say. Like I've heard, like ice cream sundae, root beer float, like all sorts of different ways people have used to work around current restrictions. And as I'm saying, these are really, really old strategies, right? So I'm sure back in the day, like under the Romans, you probably have a lot of people listening trying to say like there's some coup for people trying to assassinate or cause rebellion or trouble. These would be some very serious charges. Yet if you're just talking about farming and plants and stuff like that, then you're able to speak freely about important matters. Whereas if you were specifically naming people and saying like, oh yeah, well, this particular person is doing this and this, like that sort of talk would not fly. All right. And then also here too, I have just the general notion of the existence of different languages and ways of communicating. And under languages, I'll even say this really broadly, like I am personally a fan and connoisseur of different memes. I'm not like oh yeah, we only need high culture or something like that. I think that a lot of the memes and internet culture stuff we have is not only a lot of fun, but it's also a way in which we communicate in a lot of ways by being able to quickly illustrate patterns to convey a lot of information in a way that is it's like a graphical language, and you could express stuff that you couldn't easily express in other ways. So like I'll just here's like a meta meme. There's like more than one meme in this meme that I just put up on the screen, and I won't even bother explaining it. But that's just to say that there will be a lot of people who will understand this picture, and they could tell you about what it means. But I'm not going to label it. I'm not going to feed the machine learning thing. I'm not going to say, oh yeah, this is this, and add all the keywords and stuff to the YouTube description. We don't need to do any of that. But as just among friends and stuff, to do a communicative act, then, to have a collection of some nice frogs and wojaks and stuff could be a pretty useful thing to do, to really concisely and quickly convey all sorts of information. Okay, so languages, I say it's kind of the original encryption, in that it could be an effective way to keep communications compartmentalized. So here, the existence of different languages and cultures has proven to be an effective security policy for protecting lots of human knowledge. So maybe the Arabs will maintain some knowledge that the Latins purged or lost, something like that. But by having these different bubbles, these different traditions, different places in which people store knowledge through language of various sorts, then it is a kind of, what do you call it? It's like a safeguard. You spread out information and things in different ways. Then even if one channel gets, subverted, shut down, or whatever, just simply by having lots of different options, having lots of different little networks and stuff, then you cannot easily be deterred, right? The good program marches on. An example in the Bible is that of the shibboleth, and here Wikipedia describes it as any custom or tradition, usually a choice of phrasing or even a single word that distinguishes one group of people from another. Shibboleths have been used throughout history in many societies as passwords, simple ways of self-identification, signaling loyalty and affinity, maintaining traditional segregation, or protecting from real or perceived threats. So the traditional methods of people saying, okay, I could speak more freely and use such and such in this context versus in that context, just normal human ways of communicating and verifying and stuff will continue to be used. So no matter how fancy quantum computing, encryption, this and that, no matter how much all those things develop, the general human understanding is still a thing, and looking at the externals and sort of computing and matching forms and that, while it could do stuff like win at a game of chess, language, meaning communication, is not like a game of chess. So you could win in a particular domain if you set up the whole world as these kind of war games, but insofar as life is not a war game, then the security and all that, it's really a nothing burger. It doesn't matter. There will always be ways around it. There will always be ways to communicate. So yeah, that's why I titled this section "Fear No Evil," right? Because we could see that I'm looking specifically at the Bible, but you could probably look elsewhere too in history, how there have been all sorts of efforts throughout history to, subvert privacy, spy on people, to prevent communication, to do all sorts of different things. But we have a lot of time-tested ways in which there's no power in those methods. You might have to be innovative and work around stuff. But that's that. All right, we're getting some requests for more images of the Pepe collection. All right, let's get another Meta Pepe going. Let me find an appropriate one. I think I have. Okay, here's just like a good warm feeling one for the season. So what sort of sense does this image convey? What does this mean to you? We're streaming today, December 21st, 2021. A lot of 21s here. 21st day, 2021. 2s and 1s, all over the place. Reaper says, not everyone's nothing burger is made from the same meat. Now, maybe the nothing burger is not even made from meat. Alright, so that about does it for today's topic. Writing computers, codes, and trusts. We've come up with some more topics perhaps to look into more. But that does it for what I have there. Now I'm just going to jump into some news, current event type stuff. Viata says, do you have any rare Pepes? I probably do have some rare Pepes. Maybe. Mostly common Pepes. But probably do have some more uncommon ones. If I find, I'll use them on the preview images and stuff. If I find anything that's really, really good. But they always make themselves relevant. So I think, we don't have to force the equation. Force the occasion. Okay. So some stuff that you all have sent me related to today's topic. And let me just close some tabs. Here's an article. We have use of blockchain technology could increase human trust in AI. And then they always find these most geometric computer graphic-y illustrations whenever they talk about AI. It's a lot of black boxes, a lot of cubes. And what is this about? So I'm not going to talk specifically about cryptocurrencies and the differences between currencies and that sort of topic, but I do want to say that cryptocurrencies fall under the same category as the sort of how digital media is a new medium, and you could analyze the properties of the medium. Okay, so all this decentralized blockchain stuff, you could also analyze the properties of this and see what are people trying to do with them. So I just had a couple bullet points here. I'm thinking specifically about like Bitcoin, though I know there's people say, oh, there's all these better ones. Okay, Bitcoin's got the most bucks in it now, so that's what I'm talking about, Bitcoin. So here I said people have different reasons for trusting crypto technology. And there's a lot of, for example, like libertarian type people. And they'll say, right, decentralized blockchains mean you don't have to trust any one party, such as a central bank. So this would be one of the motivating ways why some people might want to adapt cryptocurrencies is they say, I don't like the Federal Reserve's money printer policy, so let's all use these cryptocurrencies so we don't have to, lose our money value and stuff with their inflation. And some people view these technologies too as being more transparent because you could look at the software and the math and the stuff that actually goes into some technology like Bitcoin. So you could be saying like, oh yeah, well, I know they use such and such encryption algorithm. And so for that reason, I trust this. So these reasons might make crypto projects in general seem preferable to like a current thing, such as a central bank money system now. But I think you could look ahead and see that at least I do not expect cryptocurrency to fundamentally solve any of our world problems. I'm by no means a crypto utopian type person, though I do like buy and sell crypto sometimes. I do think that learning about it and also like speculating with it isn't a stupid thing to do. A lot of people make a lot of money doing that, and through working with it and doing stuff with it too, you could learn a lot. So here I just wrote a short blurb. What potential pitfalls are there? One obvious potential danger is that some moneyed party buys up lots and lots of tokens or coins, like bitcoins, in a project, and thus could subvert the democratized or decentralized system in place. So people might say like, oh yeah, Bitcoin, great. It's decentralized, it's detached from central bank. Then you have China that comes in, and China owns, let's say, 60% of the Bitcoin or something. I don't think it's like that now. In fact, we have all these unknown parties that own huge amounts of Bitcoin. Then if you're trying to do some sort of democratic thing or whatever, how do you think that will work? Because you have this, big unknown or maybe known, like BlackRock or someone owns a ton of the Bitcoin, so that they could decide, what is the official ledger that people keep up with. So that was just like Bitcoin specifically, but you could look at other cryptocurrencies and how they might be facing the similar problems. And then another thing, you may have also heard about the threat of quantum computing, which may be able to do super duper fast calculations, thereby bypassing encryption. So I don't really know anything about quantum computing. Do I think it's like real or whatever? I will just say I really don't know. But the quantum computing stuff we are hearing about is like this kind of like, is it a bluff or is it not? We're in any case given a foreshadowing that there are these big fancy computer sort of technologies available, and supposing there is quantum computer, and let's just say it's like a really fast computer, what if that would allow like government or whoever, if anyone launches a like a coin project, then the government bot will just like swoop in and like crunch all the numbers and then just own the bulk of every single new crypto that might come out, unless it's like literally so small with computers not hooked up to the internet. At that point, why are you even using a crypto? You should just be using your own form of some kind of physical cash. So I think with a lot of crypto stuff, my own thoughts about it is, a lot of things sound kind of cool and interesting, but you could even see how with cryptocurrencies and these decentralized models that the same sorts of problems persist, and how the glowy boys and their corporate allies are likely to try to swoop in and basically take control of anything that gets big. Okay, Reaper says transistors are quantum mechanical devices. Thus, your computer and all are quantum mechanical devices. They are not quantum computers per se, though. Okay, so I assume, Reaper, you're right on the technical point that you're making. I don't know enough about quantum computers to say. I just bring up quantum computers to say, there's these inklings of these, big scary things out there that's like, oh, well, you think your cryptography is good? Well, there's these quantum computers that could defeat it. So it's like this ongoing war, as the codebook quote goes, that was talking about, the history of codes and ciphers is the story of the centuries-old battle between code makers and code breakers. So maybe the code makers now is, the people who are implementing all these cryptocurrencies and stuff, but then lo and behold, maybe quantum computer stuff, that would be the next, code breaker, big technology that forces in, the end of Bitcoin specifically, and then something else has to come in its place. I don't really know. Okay. A couple more things. So somebody sent me this article about the Matrix, and it's talking about how in this new Matrix movie, it is drawing heavily upon this story of the Golem of Prague. And let us see if there's quickly a summary. Okay, of the story. So Prague, now the capital city of the Czech Republic, was then in Bohemia, part of the Holy Roman Empire. As the tale goes, the Jews of Prague, already confined to the ghetto, were to be expelled or killed by order of Emperor Rudolf II. To defend his people, Rabbi Loev used clay from the banks of the Vltava River to form a human shape, and vivified it using Kabbalistic mysticism, creating a golem. So he brought dead clay to life using magic. The indestructible and inhumanly strong creature, usually depicted as a hulking lumbering figure, became the protector of the Jews, fighting off their persecutors. Things then go astray. The golem becomes destructive, either rising upon his creator, killing others, continuing to grow uncontrollably, or simply setting out to desecrate the Sabbath, and the rabbi was forced to destroy it. So in any case, this thing didn't just totally cleanly save something. Whatever the multiple endings are, something went wrong such that either the golem had to be destroyed or maybe it killed everyone else. In any case, the idea of the golem expressed in this story and elsewhere in a lot of variations is it's made out of clay, so it's not God. It's like created matter, and then rather than like God breathing in life into the clay, like humans were formed from dust when spirit was breathed into people who were formed from dust. The idea is that people then somehow vivified. They bring life into some dead clay, and then they make it a living thing. And so it looks like this Matrix movie makes use of this idea as a plot. Interesting, another point here about the word for robot. So here, in 1921, more than 3 centuries after Rabbi Loev of the Prague version of the Golem story, fellow Prager Karl Čapek gave the yarn his own spin, turning it into the first science fiction play, RUR, Rosam's Universal Robots, about artificial people used as laborers who gain sentience and revolt, leading to humanity's extinction. The revolutionary play coined the word robot, Czech for worker, and was widely lauded as a masterpiece. So, interesting to see how a lot of the technology, all these things that we have going on, they're throwbacks to ideas that people have had for a long time in written history. And then curiously, like with this Golem story and stuff, these stories actually tell how the project or whatever, it fails. You cannot bring in some sort of utopia with the machine, such as like with these workers, they rise up and they revolt, and it eventually leads to humanity's extinction. They didn't give me a spoiler alert, so I didn't give you a spoiler alert. It's okay with me. I hope nobody is upset with that. In any case, that's to say that it's interesting how, as AI and all these things are being developed, right? Accompanying all the excitement and the progress talk also is in movies like The Matrix and stuff. This very, you could call it like dystopian elements, talking about how the seemingly good thing, the promise of, robot making the world more peaceful and just, the world more just, ends in a fail. Okay, BB says, switching back to pen and paper records using a one-time pad cipher. Nothing personal. Yes, sounds legit. I mean, like for example, if you actually memorize like some own alphabet you made, and then recorded like all your computer passwords in that little notebook using your own alphabet, so that only you could read your password book, even if somebody like found your password book. I think I've encountered people who have done that. I don't know. Actually, sounds like a pretty good strategy. Reaper says, in other words, transistors are very different from electrical components. Edison kind of brute force created in his lab to make the light bulb. Okay, so Reaper, I think he's building off what he was saying about quantum mechanical devices and saying how transistors and things we see in computers now are different. And then, yeah, quantum computers and stuff, they will use something different from what we have now. Viata says, yeah, I don't think one would be able to make even a diode without the knowledge that came with quantum mechanics, let alone transistors. Okay, so now we have a distinction between like hyped up quantum computers and then quantum mechanics, which people have been studying for quite a while. So it seems people know a bunch about quantum stuff generally, but the hyped quantum computer fabled thing, I don't know. Alright, so Matrix, the Golem story rebooted. Interesting how science fiction especially, but pop culture generally, continues to bring images, discussion, illusions, all of that about a lot of the topics that we're dealing with here. Like in metaverse, right? People say, oh yeah, metaverse, it's like Ready Player One or Sword Art Online. When these technologies, these changes are launched, brought out to people, it's nothing new under the sun for a lot of people. They already have expectations and thoughts about these things. If you're in any tinfoil hat circles, you've probably heard the term predictive programming, which we could look at. So here, predictive programming, or when movies predict real events, and then people will say, oh, look at all these coincidences. It's just like in the movie such and such. Ross Biden says, bro, the beep where Google wants to save your passwords is so annoying. I'm not going to lie, I probably have saved a password or two by clicking too fast. Yeah, for sort of throwaway logins, I just use Chrome and have them save passwords. But don't worry, the glowy boys and stuff are working on unifying all the digital ID stuff. So soon you won't have to worry about multiple passwords. They'll just be like, scan your retina. Or they won't even ask you to scan your retina. They'll find other ways in which to verify your identity. Okay. So let's see. Okay, and then one more article that was kind of, I don't know what to make of it. Link taxes, a bad idea for journalism and the open internet. So then this article, the Peter Routhier, saying, yes, having taxes on like clicking links or having links is bad. I think that anybody on the internet who has enjoyed using the internet for the freedom to explore, of course, the idea of having taxes on links sounds terrible. Just like the idea of nowadays, for example, with like a lot of libraries, you cannot go into the library and freely browse around and see what books are there. Instead, they're like, you must go onto the computer system, reserve and have these books checked out, and so on and so forth. Whereas the one of the older reasons why going into a library would be so enjoyable would be that you're free to explore, to look at all these shelves, to see what's out there, and that nobody is necessarily telling you what to do. And so there, it's freedom, it's exploration, that's enjoyable. But here is a story talking even about having the idea of taxing links. When you see some idea kind of seeded like that, that's almost to say like, uh-oh, they mentioned it. Now we might actually see it come to be in some sort of place. And who knows, if they start taxing the internet, maybe just a lot of people will just say, I'm done with it. I'm not even going to be on the internet anymore. We'll see what happens. Cool. All right. A few more news stories. Firefox browser. I guess for a long time they've had this fictional thing called the Book of Mozilla, and then they'll have all this like weird kind of prophecy type talk stuff. And I think if you also do like type in like about something in a Firefox browser, you'll also get this. But like I'll just read the first one. Quote, "And the beast shall come forth surrounded by a whirling cloud of vengeance. The house of the unbelievers shall be razed, and they shall be scorched to the earth. Their tags shall blink until the end of days." From the Book of Mozilla. So is this just a bunch of like fantasy nerds? Kind of Easter egg? Is it kind of parodying or making fun of scripture? I don't know exactly what it is, but I just say that in a lot of our software, a lot of kind of creepy stuff built in. Let's see. BB says, "One of my favorite things is to sign up for online colleges, not enroll in classes, and use my school credentials to access library databases." Yeah, I'm aware in academics, a lot of the schools, they'll pay like an access fee to various journal databases and stuff. So logging in and going through a different school or whatever could be a very useful way to gain access to documents and stuff. And you might already be paying for access to stuff that's hosted at like another school. BB says, as well as use student ID for discounts on stuff as well. Yeah, I actually have experience with this too. I had an ID that was part of the so-called Eduroam network. So let's look at the Eduroam site. So what is Eduroam? Eduroam is based on the most secure encryption and okay, yeah. But what does it do? Find out about security. What is it? Okay, Eduroam provides simple, easy, secure connectivity from thousands of hotspots across more than 100 countries. So this Eduroam thing got developed and was rolled out so that researchers and people traveling between different countries, going to different universities and stuff, could use the internet at different places. So I remember when I had a university login and stuff that worked with Eduroam, I visited like some other place with some family, and then I didn't even know. I was like, whoa, I'm connected to the Eduroam network. So certainly having particular login credentials and stuff gives people lots of perks. Oh, and it looks like Eduroam is funded as part of the Jourdian 2020 framework. There's that word again, framework. Framework. Why does everything have to be a framework? Frameworks, they're everywhere, not just web frameworks. Frameworks, the frameworks are everywhere. Someone's framing me. I just see frameworks everywhere. Okay, Framework Partnership Agreement, FPA. The project receives funding from the European Union Horizon. Horizon 2020. Horizon? You gotta be kidding me. Looking at the horizons that just go as far as the walls of your room. The internet horizons that stop at the Faraday cage, the microwave that is your room, with the router slowly exciting the water in your body. Reaper says taxing might be a good filter, i.e. it might get rid of spam. Dude, the Mozilla stuff is a joke. Alright, taxing could be good. Mozilla's just a joke. We need Google to have all the data so then they could fight spam. Those are legit points, I think. So Reaper has given me pushback for me being kind of tinfoil. In response to this, I would say that people will do things, and you might think that you're being just random, that something is just fun, but suddenly you see all sorts of people doing that same sort of thing everywhere, and it's almost like the idea to do this particular thing didn't come from within you, but rather us as people are like channeling or we're jumping on some kind of meme. You could even say it about memes, right? Like, oh yeah, Alan is posting Pepe's, right? So here's a judgmental looking Pepe. Well, no, not judgmental. He's just calmly analyzing. So you have these different Pepe's, and you could say, like, was it your idea to come up with those? You're kind of hopping onto, you're becoming part of something. You're engaging in some sort of communication. Now, I'll give an example of something that is just a joke. It's just kind of fun. Like, you could look at even social media, Instagram, some sort of thing. Like, I noticed you would get all sorts of people that would be, like, doing some sort of pose where they're, like, sticking out their tongue in a picture. Like, just making some kind of wild pose and sticking out their tongue. Now, you might say that that's just kind of fun and that that's kind of goofy or whatever. But going in the past, like such poses, such postures would have a lot of associations with kind of a behavior of demons, basically, like sorts of pagan revelry type stuff. So of course people are free to do that. You could do that, but you could ask yourself, should I be doing that? Do I want to be doing that? Would I want to be remembered doing that? Like, would I be okay if my son or my daughter was doing that? So I'll just give the what do they call it? The ahegao face, I think is what they call. So, like, okay, this thing is kind of known for just being like very lewd. Like, you wouldn't want to embrace this, put it that way. But I'll see all sorts of people just doing this expression, and it's like, did that come from you? Who gave you the suggestion to do that? If all the poses, all the ways you might present yourself, why would you try to present yourself in this way? Similarly, I would say, like, with the Mozilla stuff, you might have people that are saying, like, oh yeah, it's just ironic, it's just fun, we're just flashing the one eye, flashing the pyramid, things like that. It's like, maybe it starts that way, but before you know it, what does that lead to? Okay, BB says, sick, never heard of this. I wonder if it works with one of the schools I'm enrolled at. My college has it. Nice. Yeah, check it out. You could probably have access to a lot of places. Reaper says, I would have been against attacks only a few years ago, but I think there is way more bad junk stuff on the internet now, and I see it getting worse. So maybe the internet has to be like everything else in life that has some kind of entrance and use fee. I think, yeah, so a thesis that I've been talking about is, I think that the crypto revolution is really fully linking money with the internet. So I think, Reaper, what you're saying here, I actually think that it will kind of come to be. Whereas, I'll give an example with the NFTs. People talk about NFT minting. There's like a fee to mint them. So let's look at what it's like to mint an NFT. So here from the Motley Fool, a website that has been around for a long time. And here's somebody designing and making an NFT. You got to connect your wallet, and then you have to pay some kind of fee to launch, officially have your NFT. Now, like, for example, in this example, Reaper going off tax and regulation, I think that this is totally, it's making NFTs less of a joke. You know, we could all say NFT is a joke. Like, me personally, I don't really care about NFTs, though I wouldn't rule out me actually buying in and using NFTs in order to make some bucks. But personally, I don't actually care about them. It would all just be speculation. Now, this payment in order to enter the game, it's very useful because, you know, anybody could download terabytes and terabytes of images. So if people could just mint NFTs for free endlessly, of course people are going to do that, especially if, you know, they could make money even selling one for a cent. So by making like a buy-in of, you know, I don't know how much it is, $200, $300 or something, in order to produce an NFT, then it's kind of like if you were to have an art gallery, you wouldn't want to like put literal garbage up in your art gallery. Supposing you actually have a legitimate art gallery, it's not just a money laundering operation, because you got to pay for your store, your gallery space. So in order to put this stuff up, there's a cost that's actually associated with providing the space for putting the thing out there. So Reaper, I'm agreeing with you saying that the tax type idea, in the sense of like a listing fee, I think that it would be a natural sort of development, where I'm kind of saying like a link tax is dumb and you shouldn't have that, which is to say, like, you know, I have my own website, right? And then part of the whole point of my website is I just like a bunch of stuff and I want the information to be freely available. So people started to say, okay, now Alan, we're going to tax, you know, whenever someone links your website, you're going to have to pay us this money for internet maintenance, or like if people click on these links, we're going to, you know, charge you a little micro transaction fee or something. So basically taxing people for just using and interacting with the internet. To me, that kind of sounds like it's like paying an entry fee to go into Disneyland and then go around and then actually spend more money. Whereas as opposed to if you just enter into like a farmer's market, you probably don't have to pay an entrance fee. The fee would be if you actually do business with the vendors. So I think that the danger of fees and taxation is that they could be used to crush and suppress smaller entrepreneurial people that have a lot to offer, and instead favor the bigger parties, you know, the Facebooks, the Microsofts, the whoever, that could deal with all the legal trouble and stuff. You don't want to advantage the big corporate parties at the expense of the little people. But like with the NFT example, just to say, let's say everybody's got to put in like $300 or whatever to list a NFT, then certainly I could see how that could help with spam prevention and all that. So maybe just thinking about how it should work, it should be dependent on the sort of marketplace you're dealing with. Like, what is the sort of space you have? Like, if there's link fees, like academic journals or something, say like, okay, we have to keep science to be this serious paid thing, not Alan talking about wandering stars and stuff. So we're going to actually have, you know, a $500 publication fee for any article. You know, it's already kind of like this in academia, but suppose they streamlined the system, then, you know, you could say, all right, the people, the associations that do that, they're free to act that way. What's the problem with that? But to do it globally and say, you know, thinking of the internet broadly as like the streets, the roads, all the land, then if they just globally impose some kind of tax, and that's just saying like this is totally not our internet, not our world. It's not like being in your own house where you do things freely. It's like you're in this prison complex and you're forced to play by some really oppressive rules, as opposed to having, well-regulated environment for the purpose of having more freedom. Rules should exist for the purpose of making things better, for maintaining order. But if the rules, rather than providing more order, are simply oppressive, then you have a no good rule system. All right. So Rasta Biden says, every time a boomer says, let's take a silly one. Yeah, I've heard that. When shooting multiple consecutive photos is unknowingly contributing to pagan rituals. Ahegao on the talk is making kids de-gen, though. BB says, Alan's going to charge Bitcoin to watch his channel in the future. Sigh. No. I need all the free promo I could get. Free to watch. Reaper says, also I think an entrance fee, cover fee to participate in any given online community as a kind of insurance bond against bad behavior might work. Okay, no, now Reaper, now you're trying to get that cut of the Bitcoin entrance fee. We're not big enough. None of that. We're not a country club. Reaper says, oh, I'm against a government tax. By tax, I thought you meant individual sites having a fee. So I think that, of course, if an individual site decides to set up a business to have some sort of subscription membership thing, there shouldn't be a law that says, oh, all websites should be free. Because, of course, if we're talking about people being able to successfully run a business online or something, then you would want people to be able to monetize their sites and stuff to have a living or whatever, producing online content full time, if that's what they wanted to pursue. So let's see. Then BB says, the theory of community: lower the cost to get in, the more people who violate trust, the higher the price, less people who violate the trust. When personal reputation was on the line, no one violated trust. Yeah, so BB's highlighting this issue too. I think that has to do with anonymity accounts and stuff on the internet. I've been a low-key Facebook shill for a while, saying I've actually got a lot of value out of Facebook, for example, using Facebook Marketplace. And one of the reasons why is because Facebook Marketplace wouldn't be sketchy insofar as I could see that the people I was dealing with, and I could kind of decide, would I be okay to meet that person at a Starbucks to sell a multiple $100 item or whatever, and I could make a decision, and I could go ahead and follow and do that by doing my own screening for stuff, by having real IDs and stuff associated with digital interactions. Then there is a lot of potential for business and stuff to happen. So I think that there is a place to have ways to verify ID and to do all that. I don't think that it's inherently evil or bad or whatever. But what I would say to that is just saying, what sort of society would I like to see? Well, maybe you have multiple different marketplaces and people could choose to participate in the different things that they want to do. Now, if we're talking about forcing people to register and do everything digitally and stuff, I don't like that. Maybe it will happen. But to have sort of alternatives to that, choose your sort of marketplace you want to interact in. I'll give one example is I visited East Asia. In China, there's still a lot of markets and stuff where people might haggle over the price. Like say, oh yeah, make it cheaper, make it more. They're like, oh, you're a foreigner, we'll make the price high. I really don't like doing that. One of the reasons why I like to do stocks and crypto, it's just do I like the price? Buy or sell, whatever. I would rather do that than try to like negotiate the price down or up or whatever. To me, often it seems like a kind of annoying game and a waste of time. But maybe not everyone thinks that way. So Reaper says the government can stay the beep out of regulating the internet. The minute you let the government tax the internet one way, every local will try to tax individual sites or services in bizarre ways. Yeah, well, so here again, we got the slippery slope, right? So if there's like one legal thing that slips in one way, then you might have this, avalanche of all sorts of trouble that comes. So I think, yeah, property information law and stuff, maybe it seems kind of slow and clunky, but you could see how if there was some really reckless move, it could really bring everything blowing up. Okay, let's see. Viata says, can't wait until the rest of the world do the same as North Korea. You could only access American sites if you're in America, Japanese sites when you're in Japan, etc. Yeah, so what Viata is talking about, you could call this the idea of like the intranet. And, a Google error. Please try again in 30 seconds. 502. So here, the example that they offer here is like a company might have in like a little internal intranet for their corporate thing. But then we could look at this with geographic boundaries. And I would say that I think we already kind of have an intranet in many ways. I'll just give an example with China. So if you go on like Chinese internet, to log in and stuff to a lot of Chinese websites, you're going to be required to enter in a Chinese phone number. So unless you do some maneuvering around and acquire a Chinese phone number or get somebody in China to help you, something like that, then you will not be able to use Chinese internet fully logging onto an account. So, 请输入手机号. Please enter your mobile phone number. And I do not have a Chinese mobile phone number, so I cannot register for this site without working around the system. So it's already this case where different nations effectively have different siloed off internets. Now you could say like a lot of static websites, like I could still read all these Chinese articles that are just publicly available. Probably the CCP won't complain if I start to read CCP propaganda documents. They'll probably be happy and encourage me to become a better comrade of them. But if I want to like interact on their social media, then they'll be like, oh, no, we're afraid of Western collusion. We don't want those radical Westerners to convince all the Chinese youth to dye their hair purple and adopt Baby Yoda instead of starting families. BB says, one meta token has been placed in Alan's NFT wallet for shilling Facebook. Yes, a victory. Yes, Facebook provides very useful services for helping connect people and provides good user experiences, with Facebook. Raper says, what do you think of Microsoft forcing Windows 11 home users to log onto their computers using a Microsoft Online account? Pro users don't have to. To that I would say, I mean, I don't believe that people have like a right to an operating system or anything like that. So if Windows is kind of forcing something, I don't, it's kind of like you're already using Windows, I guess is what I'm saying. So, I don't feel like, oh no, Microsoft has violated people's privacy, or something like that. It's like, no, I mean, you're using Windows on a PC and it's got all this spooky stuff. What do you expect? It's not your computer. It's it's your client device to interface with their servers, and it always has been. So don't expect it to be something else. Reaper says the local cable companies would pay the local cities to sue YouTube to force every streamer to have a license as one example of what might happen. Yeah, so Reaper, your example here, we could look at how in the past, right, with like FCC and the radio stuff, right? Wouldn't you have to get licensed and stuff in order to do radio? If I just hooked up some radio equipment and started broadcasting, probably a glowy boy would knock on my door, and I would have to have a little talk about how what I'm doing is the big illegal. So in the same way, right, maybe with digital communications with internet, who knows? Maybe Alan's stream will be cut short because Alan cannot acquire his proper license. Wait, do you have a license for that? Beata says South Korea does that. Even their Android app requires you to have a Korean phone number to create an account. Yeah, South Korea, they got their own a very strong intranet, and like one interesting image I've looked at would be like an internet connectivity map. So I don't know how much of this is real or fake, but this is just the data that we have presented to us about how connected the world is. And typically on these maps, you'll see that South Korea is absolutely glowing. So, that's only the States. In any case, South Korea is a very, very highly interconnected place, and they have their own services for stuff. So, of course, they got their famous Naver website. They have their own Kakao app is their the unofficial Korean chat app, and of course they have a Samsung, all sorts of Samsung services. So in the past stream I made the assertion that I think a lot of the East Asian countries, they're used as a kind of technical test bed for things that will be brought out further into the West. So if there's anything that seems like high tech going on in South Korea, including like robots and stuff, then I expect those similar things to also be rolled out in the West in the not too distant future. Image news robot. Okay, Rasta Biden says, why can't just all account share with John Cena so that we could use the Chinese internet? Most attempts to block the internet usually don't work at all. Think about the Are You 18 button on an adult site. So Rasta Biden, I think the legit, like if there's a Chinese website that's blocking based on region, I think that the effective practical solution is to just use a VPN. I'm not sponsored by a VPN, but let's say, oh yes, I'm Alan, and go to NordVPN, and it is one of the best ways to browse. Save 72% this holiday season. So one of the big reasons people might use a VPN, forget about the privacy stuff. Of course, the VPN could record all the places you're connecting, but the VPN could allow you to pretend that you're in another country. Now, what that doesn't do, though, is it doesn't give you like a free phone number for like China or something. So I think that the account-based lock in, lock out mechanism means that even if you are able to access like TV shows and stuff using a VPN, that still you aren't a full like Chinese netizen, that you can't have an account, you can't post, you cannot make content on Chinese websites unless you get connected with the appropriate parties. Lasagna's good says hi. George says hi. Reaper suggests that I broadcast out of a moving van. And BB says if you start broadcasting without a license, one of the boomer ham radio guys will hunt you down first. I don't know if anybody is actually familiar with the ham radio type community. Are the people in there generally pretty libertarian-ish, or are they kind of whole monitor rule type people? I'm not sure. I know at least one person who's interested with it, and he's a pretty societally acceptable guy, not a fringy guy. But maybe there's a lot of fringy people on the ham radio. I don't know. Okay. So let's look at a couple more news stories, just because we're having a good time here. Here's an article. So one continued source of interesting news stories that I've been using is the Firefox new tab. And for whatever reason, they have a plethora of so when you open a new tab in Firefox, by default, they'll have all these stories, and they have always all sorts of effective clickbait, because they post this stuff that seems so bizarre that I want to click it. So you could say that I got baited by the clickbait. Anyways, they posted a story today or recently here. Let's take a look. The world as we know it is ending. Why are we still at work? And I thought this was interesting because this is on Firefox browser. So a lot of kind of nerd privacy interested people will be using Firefox. And then they showed this burnt out hipster yuppie. So I say he's a hipster yuppie type guy because he's got a man bun, but then he's suited up, and then it has the same sort of corporate art style, New World Order iconography of the blank face. And then here, showing all this pollution and stuff is also suggestive of, how humans are bad and they're polluting the world, and stuff gonna be bad and all that. A Reaper says, ham is all license base. All right. Anyways, let's look at this article by Vox. And it's what is the purpose of this article? It's more or less telling people, if you just think your job sucks, you just want to give up, well, that seems pretty natural and normal. So from pandemic to climate change, Americans are still expected to work no matter what happens. And then this article, interestingly, gives a kind of summary of the official narrative and how you're supposed to feel about all the events that transpired. So as the novel thing was sweeping the globe, leaders and experts recommended that the U.S. pay a bunch of bucks till people stay at home till the immediate crisis was over. And then people would just hunker down, isolate, and then that would end it. And then that didn't happen. So instead, people started to do remote work and go over Zoom and do all that. And then meanwhile, we would have our whole news and media drama, such as people of particular classes being targeted, such that you had people that wanted to stop funding particular municipal services. Here's a psychologist saying, people are not doing well, everything sucks. People are not happy with what's happening. Then here talking about a lot of physical danger that has actually killed people. And then here too, a lot of people just quitting, highlighting some particular sectors in which that's happening, and then of course highlighting the effects with particular groups. So in a usual Vox-like fashion, this article just goes down and broadcasts all these things that are happening as like, these are all the facts. Duh, don't we all know that these are the facts? This is what's happening, and how should we feel? Of course, there's a lot of fear and uncertainty as we enter into the, quote, new normal, with experts warning that, quote, the country is sleepwalking towards a future in which votes no longer matter, implying that they did. So saying a lot of doom stuff for the people that pin their ideas on if stuff is going well based on that sort of thing. Alright, then talking about workers and money, stuff like that, given a title. So now you could, if you search Great Resignation, the mainstream media is obviously very happy using this phrase and talking about this thing. So we had a Great Depression in the 30s in the US, right? And now everyone could talk about, likewise, oh yeah, 2020, do you remember the Great Resignation? BB says, self-censoring. Blink twice if there are agents in the room with you. Don't worry. Well, if they are here, hello, agents. You guys are all welcome. Guys, girls, and whatever your pronouns are, you're all welcome to the stream. We're all friends. We don't hate you. We're all people. You come from a place too. You come from a family. You're a human being. And we harbor no hard feelings. But if you're doing bad things, stop doing those bad things, because it won't make anything better. And let us all be friends and work together. So that's to say, if there are glowy boys and stuff, maybe. I hope you're enjoying the stream if you are monitoring or watching. All right. So anyways, let's skip down. A lot of words. What's the moral of this story? Overall, surviving the disasters of the 21st century will require a new kind of strength from Americans, not the dogged persistence to keep doing our jobs while the world falls down around us, but the empathy and generosity to come together to stop the collapse. As Reams put it, nothing is possible when we all have to pretend to be independent all the time. So the moral of the story at the end of the day is, big changes are coming, and don't just be selfish and claim to your old way of doing things, but you could expect that we're gonna build back better. We're gonna bring in a new framework, and society's gonna be built up on a new framework. So, it's not just being persistent that's going to get us through this one. Rather, you got to care about the feels, and you got to be willing to give up stuff. And through answering to the feels, giving up stuff, and not being independent but submitting to the establishment, then that's how Vox is telling us that we're going to get through this together, which means we could expect some changes lined up as now the base for the new framework has been laid. What will come in the future, we shall see. Okay, here's another article I thought was interesting. Hacker News, they had a thread called "What is Humanity Building Towards?" So if you guys don't know this website, Hacker News, a lot of developers and people are interested in it. Developers and venture capitalists. So you get like a lot of nerd kind of techno-futurist talk on here. But oftentimes they have some pretty interesting stories because they're venture capital. Think about what sort of money is going into projects that might actually take off, and what could be an investment opportunity, for instance. So it's like an incubator of startups, I think is how they present themselves. Yeah, so they got job listings too, and you can see a lot of engineering software type stuff. All right, so here's a thread. Maybe somebody was having a retrospective moment. What is humanity building toward? So let's read this. What exactly are we as a species building? Judging from technological growth and general activity, it seems that collectively we are striving for something cohesively. What could it be? Happy to hear thoughts from any perspective, whether that be drawn from evolution, system theory, economics, or beyond. Could I actually write a comment? The Technological Society, Jacques Ellul, 1954. We are optimizing for the sake of optimizing. Technique must be served. The new Tower of Babel must be erected to usher in the final form of the new world order. I think I have to log on. I don't think it'll work. Yeah, it won't work. Anyways, here's a question that they're asking. Let us see what people have to say. Cable Shaft writes, extinction. Unless we stop doing business as usual and have a major drawdown soon, although that doesn't seem likely. Or at least collapse enough that it's pretty darn close to extinction. There will be some neat technology leading up to it, though, at least the next 10 to 20 years, so that'll be fun. Maybe new web frameworks people will get excited about. So he's being sarcastic, as there are many, many, many web frameworks, and people are exhausted from having to learn all of them. Another response, more of the same. 1,000 years ago, most people lived their lives as much as they had to and lived their fantasies as much as they could. 1,000 years from now, the same will apply. Right. Another person, as far as I can tell, we seem to be striving towards developing the most efficient methods to have our attention subverted. And then here's an optimistic reply. He says, I think we're getting better at creating collective intelligence. Every way we come up with to organize or connect a group of people is some kind of collective intelligence. Some are more intelligent than others, e.g. World Cafe method. Some are mostly counterproductive, like social media. We're learning from our mistakes. Blah, blah, blah. Anyways, I'm not going to read through this whole thread, but one thing I found interesting looking at these stories. So first, this Vox, the world as we know is ending. Why are we still at work? Then this Hacker News, what is humanity building towards? And then here's just one more. We won't read this, but we'll just look at the title. Why distracting yourself is better than positive thinking. And it talks about how you should just distract yourself to not be anxious. So all this is to say, I think that there's a general climate of not technical optimism. People of all sorts, even tech investor type people, are looking into the future, and a lot of just probably people you would call normal people, maybe people that are more senior than you, more embedded in money and technology and stuff than me, at least. I don't know, maybe some high-powered folk are watching this, but more connected and powerful than me. And it seems that in general, there's like this exhaustion with the current thing, especially as lockdowns and stuff have really put pressure and stuff on people. And it seems that like people are waiting for some kind of collapse. Like, how long could the money printer go? When's stuff going to go down? General, this sort of sense is what I get. So what's to come? I found this other article here. 2022, a major revolution in robotics. A world-class roboticist and why everything is about to change. So then this article just goes on about how people are excited because they're going to have highly capable but more general purpose robots. So here, Semi-structured environments are sort of next frontier for robots. So not just one robot that does one thing, but a semi-structured environment, like some robots that are going around a robo warehouse doing all sorts of robo things. So here, the big ones I anticipate are warehouse pick and pack operations, recycling, sortation, and crop harvest and care. From a technological point of view, these are naturally in the striking range of recent AI developments. And also personally, I know people working on AI robotics in each of those industries, and they're making great strides. So let's put the pieces together. Generally, kind of negative pessimism or just generalized anxiety going around about the future in the sort of mainstream space. And then on the other hand, we're seeing predictions for continued more AI, more robot, that type of thing. So in the coming year, I personally will not be surprised if, say, it becomes typical at a fast food restaurant for there to be at least like one robot doing the fries. Such that people are actually quite used to seeing some kind of robot in a setting that they might go to often. Or that maybe like drive-through kind of pick up from a window becomes a very common thing. I think that we are seeing like a lot of foreshadowing type notes about changes that are to come. And I say this because I think here in this robotics article, for example, they do list a bunch of like specific things. They do show the actual technology. All this sort of stuff is very down to earth. For something like, oh yeah, there's a lot of movies about UFOs. When are we gonna hear some announcement about like space aliens or something? Really, I don't know when that is to tell. Now, on the other hand, if you actually have stories showing like, oh yeah, here's automation of this and this in a warehouse, and then you also say, let's look at like stories. I think a bunch of more warehouses are being built generally. So here we had this story about like a warehouse collapse, so danger to human workers, and this Amazon warehouse. So let's add the keyword new warehouse. But anyways, this Amazon story though, it's showing that okay, it could be dangerous for people to read in. It could be dangerous for people to be working in stuff in a warehouse. So if we start to see more and more robo warehouses, this I think would be a natural development to expect. And of course, more robo warehouses means a lot of labor type jobs that maybe people would have done in the past. We might see the sort of first stages of a lot of not just computerized systems, but actual physical robots doing a bunch of stuff, whether it's flipping burgers or driving forklifts or something. So here, 13 hours ago, blockchain firm Toll buys New Brunswick warehouse, so maybe data stuff still. Farmers Branch furniture retailer Zuri leases a bigger warehouse. Some more property group buying a warehouse. Right about the Amazon warehouse collapse. HR trying to get more warehouse workers. Gotham Greens. What is that about? Is that some kind of robo plant company? Let's take a look. Gotham Greens opens new California-based warehouse. So what do they do? 10 acres, state-of-the-art hydroponic. Yeah, it's a high-tech greenhouse. Hydroponic greenhouse near the University of California Davis campus, the company's first greenhouse on the West Coast. So like that robot article here was talking about crop harvesting and care. And then here, Davis, California, then you're seeing these state-of-the-art facilities. And it's called Gotham. And so I don't know how high-tech, high-profile this is, but let's just say that it's greenhouse and hydroponic as opposed to just in the ground, normal crop type thing. Let's take a look at a couple more pages. All right, here's another one. So I'm sure all of you have at least heard in passing about supply chain problems, or maybe even had trouble buying stuff. So why would we want to cut off more international supply stuff? What might that be leading into? So here, new warehouse leases boosted by inflation, supply chain crisis. So suppose if the way in which America is building back better means that a lot more production is returning to the United States as opposed to like buy cheap clothes from China. Maybe more clothes will be made in the United States. But how will those clothes be made? Maybe it'll be like by robo factories in the United States. So robotics, AI, and production and warehouses in the United States. But it might involve a lot more turning everything into Robo-Borg land. Another huge warehouse. What's this one about? Lone Star Electric Supply Warehouse. So we'll have to keep a watch on seeing what's going on. But I could easily see a scenario in which these work environments become increasingly hostile just for normal people working jobs, and the robot stuff naturally lends itself to more controlled environments like warehouses. Like I think if we got a lot more automated warehouse stuff before even like self-driving cars becoming widespread, I wouldn't be surprised. Like let's just search if we looked at like Amazon high-tech forklifts, they probably have like robot stuff going on. So back in 2019 there. Here, meet Amazon's newest warehouse robots. Okay, well, we're at warehouseautomation.ca. And they got robos of various sorts. So obviously all this stuff is being actively developed, so I won't be surprised if we see more and more of it. Reaper says robots mean more job for American workers. 70,000 plus factories closed since 2000. Yeah, I'm not saying that there's going to be more or less jobs. What I am saying, though, is that what sort of changes do we expect to see coming to a place like the United States? I think that there are signs that there is going to be a lot more manufacturing type stuff, especially with all the supply chain shock. I think the supply chain shock stuff is kind of a restructuring of the economies and some political stuff, and that we could expect to see a lot more robo and robo-aided business type stuff back in the States. Reaper says it'd be amazing to have state-of-the-art factories onshore. Reaper says also people already considered assembly lines with heavy machinery to be automated. People were concerned about that automation going back 200 years. Yeah, so I'm not scared about robo or AI takeover. My own personal view about this stuff is that when you bring in more technological society stuff, what it does is it further and further transforms the nature of work. So there's still like tons and tons of work for people to do, but what you have is people are increasingly alienated from their work. So maybe a really natural form of work would be to do handicrafts, to work the land, something like that. But now the nature of jobs is more and more people interfacing with more and more layers of machines and computers. So I would not be surprised if there are a lot more jobs that are created, as our president of the United States is saying he wants to do through the Build Back Better framework, though I think that the nature of a lot of the jobs and the things that are coming for people are going to be jobs that are very inhuman in many ways. All right, I think that about does it for this stream. So I want to thank everybody who showed up to hang out and study with me today. Stream continues tomorrow at planned for the same time, unless something I did not foresee comes up. And have a good rest of the day, everyone. Thanks for joining.